Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to talk for 10 minutes about Duchamp's Fountain. My name is Andrew Gallacher, and I'm one of the artists working here in the Blavatnik building on floor 5. And I've decided to talk about this because it is a conceptual work of art, and my work too is conceptual. So that's the connection. This is called Fountain. You probably know that. It's by Marcel Duchamp. And of course, as you can see, it is, in fact, a urinal. Is it a beautiful urinal? Some people have said they can see a seated Buddha shape in the urinal. Some people have said they can see a veiled woman's face. That's usually men who say they can see a veiled woman's face. And why is it signed R. Mutt 1917 when it's by Marcel Duchamp? I'll change the card and I'll tell you. Here's the story. Let me take you now to the New York of 1917. And Marcel Duchamp is quite a well-known French painter who's just arrived in New York. He's been there for a couple of years, and he is on the committee of the Society of Independent Artists, who are a kind of avant-garde group, and they're going to put on an exhibition. Another person who is on the committee is Man Ray, and you can see his iron with the spikes sticking out. So Man Ray was on this committee, and Duchamp was on this committee. And the committee decided that because they were very avant-garde, they weren't going to judge the art that came into their exhibition. Any artist who could come up with the $6 entrance fee could exhibit in their exhibition. So Duchamp, who, well, he was a bit of an eccentric, and some of his paintings weren't terribly well received in France, and some say that's why he came to America. So Duchamp, who had a female alter ego, he was called Rose C'est la Vie, and there are some wonderful pictures of him in full drag. He looks like something out of Thoroughly Modern Millie. I don't know if you've seen that. He pops out to the 1917 New York equivalent of B&Q, and he buys a urinal. He paints R. Mutt 1917 on it, and he gets a female friend of his to put the urinal into the exhibition, because he wants to see what the committee say about it. So the committee don't like it, to be honest. They refund his $6 entrance fee, and they send a letter to R. Mutt saying that an object such as this has no place, they say, in an art gallery. Well, Duchamp is disgusted. He is appalled that this supposedly avant-garde organization has refused his brilliant work of art. He takes the urinal, he goes off in a huff, he resigns his position on the committee of the Society of Independent Artists. He takes his urinal to his mate, Alfred Stieglitz, who is a photographer. Now we think that it's Stieglitz who puts the urinal on its back, and then he photographs it. And that is Alfred Stieglitz's photograph. And that, in fact, is the only evidence we have of the urinal's existence, because we think Stieglitz, after a while, it was obviously hanging around the studio, and who wants a urinal hanging around the studio? And he chucked it in whatever the New York City 1917 equivalent of a skip is, probably a skip. So he chucked it in a skip. And so no one knows what happened to it, really. So he's resigned, here we are. Why is this piece important? Why do I like it? You can't say that it's beautifully crafted. You can't really say that it has any kind of aesthetic value. It's not really a pleasure to look at. It's not something that inspires you, like, you know, you would see a beautiful sunset painted or a landscape or something. So what is it? It is, or it represents, a mass-produced object. And what does it do as a work of art? I would suggest that what it does as a work of art is to ask questions. That's what it does. And of course, the first question it asks is, what the hell is a urinal doing in an art gallery? And that is the point of it. That is the point of the work of art. It also asks questions like, what is art? Who can be an artist? Is it a work of art just because it's in a gallery? Who decides what's art and what isn't? Now, to my mind, this is important because it represents the story behind it. It's almost like it's an SD card or a CD that has the data on it of the story, because the story is the important thing about it. Hence, conceptual art. It's the concept behind it. Like my artwork, 5th floor, Blavatnik building, if you'd like to come and see, and also if you'd like to come and collaborate. So, there's another layer to this as well, because, of course, this is not the original urinal. So it's a fake. No, it's a copy. Except that it was made under Marcel Duchamp's... He was the one who said, yes, you can make replicas. And in fact, there were 17 replicas made under his auspices. And this one, made in 1965, is one of 8 that was made, and he signed it on the back. And it's a pity you can't see it, but there's a little copper plate on the back here saying who made it and when. So there are 17 copies. So how can that be original? And in fact, this is more of a work of art than the original, because the original was a produced piece from a factory. This is a handmade earthenware reproduction made to look like porcelain, which the original was. So actually this is crafted, the other thing, it's very complicated. And of course it just makes you ask more and more complicated questions. There we are. Oh yes, here's an interesting little fact. For some people, the proof that this is, in fact, an important work of art is that in 1999, one of the 8 replicas, so not this one, but another one, sold at Sotheby's for $1.7 million. Go figure. So there's hope for us all. Moving on. Interestingly, a lot of people have tried to contribute to this work of art, by which I mean that a few Frenchmen have peed in it. Obviously the one in France. There have been attempts. I don't know if you, some of you might know who Brian Eno is, a musician. He tried to take part in a performance with the replica that's in the MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, but it's protected by a perspex thing like this, but there are air holes. So there's some debate as to whether Brian Eno actually managed it, because what he had to do is to pee into a little tube, and then he poured his pee over the urinal. So I don't know whether that counts or not. And even here in the Tate Modern opened sort of year 2000, and within the first few months, a couple of Chinese performance artists came and tried to pee on Fountain. And they were stopped and questioned, and they said, well, look, this is performance art, and Duchamp would have approved. He would have loved what we're doing here. And the funny thing is, I think that they were right. I think that Duchamp, in choosing this piece and presenting it, was giving 2 fingers up to authority and saying, well, look, you can't decide what art is. Now, having said that, it wouldn't have been Duchamp who'd have to clear it all up afterwards, so there's that. Now, that's my 10 minutes up. I just want to thank you all for listening and to remind you that my own artwork is on display at floor 5 of the Blavatnik building. And if you do want to pop along there, you'd be most welcome, and you can take part in the work I'm making. It's about shredding data, and you can come and have some fun up there. Anyway, thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your day at Tate Modern. Thank you. Thanks.